Welcome everyone to the first virtual butcher show live, brought to you by Derma Meats. We're excited today to bring you something that is brand new to the industry, especially in Canada. But we're going to bring you the virtual butcher every second week in Canada, and we're going to introduce you to two people, but our butcher first of all, chef. But thanks again for joining us today, and we're super excited to see what we have here. But first of all, I'm going to introduce Chef Steve McGoey. He's our virtual in-house butcher today, and he's going to be on the show many more times. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks, Jay.
Excellent. Well, over to Derma Meats, that is the show's brought to you by, is Rami. I'm going to say hello. There you are, buddy.
Yeah.
You look so serious.
Thank you, Jay. Very excited for this show.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you on there. Looks like there's a screen behind you with lots going on. We'll talk about that maybe later. But Steve, what are we going to be seeing today?
Well, first of all, I just can't thank you guys enough for the opportunity to do this. I love working with proteins. I love working with beef. And when you get stuff like this to play with, there's nothing better. So we're going to focus today. We're going to call this the Boneyard episode. I just kind of thought about that because we're going to play with some big old tomahawk steaks, and we're going to talk about braising with some short ribs. So two things are near and dear to my heart, and I really want to talk about some ways to best utilize these fantastic cuts, and find ways to make your operation viable, make these viable options for your operation. Guests who want to order some takeout and order from your restaurants, a really cool opportunity to indulge in these awesome meats. So we're going to start with tomahawk, and they'll work into the short ribs after that.
Awesome. So,
let's do it.
You want to get right into it, Chef?
Or if you want to talk about a few things, I'm cool. I'm just leaning on a bone here. So
is that something that you would see on restaurants a little bit?
So, this is an interesting cut. There's a lot of mystique about this. The tomahawk. Some people call it a long bone rib steak. I've heard people call it the Wilma cut. I think that goes back to the whole Flintstones when Fred's driving to the takeout and the big, rack of ribs tips the car over. He goes, Wilma. Anyway, bunch of different names for it. At the end of the day, it's a big ass rib steak. And I think the cool thing about this and what I want to showcase today is just how versatile it is. I think some people can be intimidated by this steak, certainly something this thick. But this is an awesome steak for restaurants to feature or restaurants to utilize for a family dinner, for takeout. You get the asset and the benefit of having a nice thick cut that'll travel well. So I really want to, sort of crush the mystique that you can't have a great steak from a steakhouse in your home for takeout. And I'm going to show you that today. But yeah, this is a big rib steak, and I'm going to show you how I like to cook it and talk about some different methods that restaurants or home consumers can best utilize it to ultimately enjoy the most delectable, delicate eating experience ever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
well, let's get into it. Let's get cooking.
What I'll do is clear my board here. My pumpkin had a bad day. Anyway, as I mentioned off the top, big bone-in rib steak. Again, the name doesn't really matter. I think a lot of people utilize the tomahawk because it's got some cachet to it. It's kind of sexy. But really what makes it so unique is this long bone. And the reason why the steaks naturally have to be so thick is because the bone hasn't been compromised at all. It's a full intact rib bone off the animal, and therefore the steak naturally has to be sort of 3 inches thick. This is about a 3-pound steak, so it takes a little bit of time to cook. But this thing, I can vouch, is just an amazing eating experience, and for a lot of reasons. It's thick. There's a lot of, I don't know if you can see here, Jay, on camera here. The intramuscular fat here is ridiculous. I mean, that's what you want to see. Take a look at that. That is a well-fed, well-marbled animal. It's been really well looked after, and what we're going to benefit from is all that intramuscular fat. When we cook it, it's going to liquefy and melt and create that exceptional eating experience and mouthfeel that we've all come to know from steakhouses and places that you go for your sort of elite steak eating experience. So I want to talk a little bit about how to cook this. And I think there's obviously different opinions, and people have different thoughts on how to cook this particular cut. I'd like to talk a little bit today about a method called reverse searing. And it's fairly straightforward, and the name sort of speaks to it all anyway. The whole idea behind reverse searing is that you sear the steak at the end of the cooking as opposed to searing it at the beginning of the cooking. And there's a couple reasons why it works so well for a steak of this size and this thickness. For one, when you have a steak this thick and you try and cook this over the grill over higher heat, what ends up happening is to get a proper degree of doneness, you'll end up overcooking the outsides of the steak. So the outer parts of the steak will be sort of a higher degree of doneness than the internal, which is ultimately what the consumer or the guest will have ordered. So by reverse searing it, what we end up doing is we slow roast the steak first, and then we sear it at the end. And what that does is it creates a beautiful uniform cook all the way through the steak, as opposed to the sort of quote unquote bullseye effect where you've got a red center and it gets grayer and grayer as you get to the outside, which really isn't ideal. That's not what we're looking for. As you can imagine, it's a big steak. We're going to be charging for it. So we want to make sure when consumers or guests have it, it's cooked perfectly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and show how I did it here. So the reverse sear is great, but don't get me wrong. If your restaurant or your operation is set up to cook this on the grill, by all means, you can do it. It still is fantastic. I just thought today we had an opportunity to talk about a method that perhaps some people haven't utilized or done before. So what I do to start is I take my my tomahawk or my Wilma or my long bone ribeye, whatever you want to call it, rib steak, and I take it out of the fridge or the cooler about half an hour before we're going to cook it. It allows it to sort of come to temperature a little bit, and it will allow it to take that heat in the oven a bit quicker than had it been right out of the fridge. So out it comes. I'm going to give it a generous seasoning with salt. Don't be shy. Remember, this is a big piece of meat. There's a lot of surface area. So lots of salt over the top. Now, of course, you could use whatever steak seasoning you like. If if you prefer a different type, by all means. I love a good coarse salt and good black pepper on mine. And let the steak do the rest.
So, Steve, do you rub that in? Do you rub the spices in? Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah, I will in 1 sec. Once I get the pepper on, that's a great. You just sort of combine them all and press it in just a little bit into the meat so it's all well coated. Okay. The second thing I do before I place it in the oven is I wrap the bone with some foil. And the reason why I do this is you don't want the bone to really discolor that much. If it discolors, and especially when we sear it at the end, it can have sort of that burnt look to it and that sort of unappealing aroma that comes from bone. So by wrapping it, it still allows the heat to penetrate to cook it appropriately. You don't end up with any sort of off-putting aromas or flavors when the steak's done. So from here, we're now ready to place it in the oven. And the whole idea behind the reverse sear again is to slow cook it in the oven first. So I placed mine in the oven at 225 degrees. Now you can cook it from 200 to 275 is sort of the rule of thumb. I did mine at 225 and I slow roasted it for about an hour and 20 minutes. And that got me up to an internal temperature of 115 degrees. Once it got to that degree of doneness, I pulled it from the oven and immediately placed it on a hot skillet. Seared it for about 45 seconds aside, and that was it. The steak was done. So it takes a little bit of time. The one thing I wanted to point out for operations that have combi ovens or rationales, alto shams, those sorts of things, this is perfect for this type of cooking. You already have a slow roasting oven in your operation. So what better way to utilize that by using a combi, using a rationale, slow roasting these to start. And then operationally, it's a breeze. Take it out of the holding cycle from your oven, blast it on your grill for 45 seconds aside, and boom, you're done. You've got a beautiful tomahawk steak, whether you're going to be sending it for takeout or those that are still allowed to sort of in-house dine. Really, really easy operation. I think that's an important misnomer that people look at this and they're like, there's no way I can cook this in my operation. It's too big. well, you can. I think it's just thinking backwards a little bit and thinking what you have and utilizing the equipment to the best of its ability. Okay, so I think that's a real win and a real opportunity for operations out there to really do a wonderful job with the steak. So I'm going to take this one over. My rack.
Hey, Steve, we have a question from one of our viewers. Did you use kosher salt?
Pardon me?
Kosher salt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. I like a nice coarse salt, kosher salt. Absolutely. It's just, the coarser the better, I find. It allows it to sort of penetrate inside the muscle a bit better, giving you sort of a much more uniform flavor all the way through the meat once it's been cooked. So absolutely, no issue at all there.
Now, we had another question too. What do you sear in with a large bone?
So I use a either at home I use my barbecue or a cast iron griddle. You can use a nice cast iron pan. Remember, you're really not searing the bone; you're just searing the surface of the steak. So in a big cast iron skillet, you can still get nice surface contact with the face of the steak, and the bone can kind of hang out the side. The bone's already cooked; it's already been in the oven for over an hour, so there's no issue there. It's really the surface area to the cast or the griddle or the grill, whatever you happen to have at home or in your operation, that we're looking for, just to get that final sear at the end. Okay.
Awesome. And to everyone else that's watching the show, if you want to ask our butcher, Chef Steve, other questions, he is a mountain of resources here. So he's only been doing, how long have you been cooking with meat, Chef?
Oh boy, don't want to age myself. Probably 30 years.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time around meat and butcher shops in my previous life in operations. It's a space that's near and dear to me. And this is just such a great venue and a great opportunity, Jay, that you and Rami are providing to really help people and alleviate frustration, confusion, and an intimidating factor with some pieces of meat and cooking styles that are very, very approachable. So please reach out. I'm happy to help in wherever way I can, and would love to just allow everyone to feel comfortable in this space. So absolutely.
That was like the most sincere beef message I've ever heard. Ooh.
I love it. I'm a passionate guy when it comes to this kind of stuff. I've said it before, when you have great products and great ingredients like we have here, it's really not that complicated. It's when you're trying to mask inferior product is when you run into issues. So if you start by buying quality and working with great ingredients, the food speaks to itself, really. But it's about taking time and giving the food the respect that it deserves, right? This tomahawk came from an animal that was, like I said, well fed. The farmers did a great job raising it. We owe it respect to treat it and cook it properly so we can all sort of see it all the way through. So there you go. There's my token. The one thing I forgot to mention for all of you out there is to really make sure you have a fantastic meat thermometer, especially for the reverse sear method. You really want to make sure you're monitoring the internal temperature of the steak all the way through the cooking cycle. I use this kind of cool Bluetooth wireless one. It's called a meter. You can look it up online. It's fantastic. It does all kinds of great things. You can hook it up right to your phone, and it literally tells you when to take the steak out of the oven or off the grill, how long to rest it for, etc. So anyways, a key point to have there. I know a lot of restaurateurs, a lot of chefs and restaurants have their own methods to do it, but a thermometer is so pivotal, so key to doing this. So let me put this together for you and show you what it will look like. So as you can see, it's got a beautiful sear on the outside. You can see the juices starting to run down on the cutting board. So again, this was literally on the grill or the griddle for 45 seconds on each side. That was it. The rest of it was done in the oven. I'm just going to take my foil off. You can see the bone still has a beautiful white color to it, which is nice. There's no off-putting aroma, or it's not burnt at all. It looks really great, and it's going to present really nice as well. So from here,
now, Chef, I got to ask you a question here because you said something.
Yeah,
aroma. Is there something that you got to smell in the meat after it's cooked? Like,
no, it's just if you've ever smelt sort of burnt bone or burnt bone marrow, it's kind of like burnt hair. It sort of has that off-putting smell, and by wrapping the foil around the bone, you just eliminate the opportunity for that. Because there's nothing worse than sending a beautiful plate like this out to a guest or a consumer, or someone opens up, you know, a takeout package at home and they get, you know, wafted with that. So it's nothing to be, you know, over focused on. It's a little trick that I've always done with rib steaks, with these tomahawks, or anything with a bone. I just find that it just saves that off put, you know, should it happen.
So the one thing I want to bring out too is that we're running some poll questions to our viewers. Please fill them out. We want your insights and opinions on our shows and stuff. And it's important as we navigate, and we want to introduce you to stuff that's real important to you as we move forward with our butcher shows. So it's not us making the decisions, it's our viewers that tell us what they want to see from us. So share it with us. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely, and we're going to touch on that in the next segment when we talk about grazing. That came from our viewers already. So we want to make sure you're involved in the show. We can help you out along the way.
And we also have a few non-Sysco customers on the show today. Guess what? This is what we do. This is what our departments do. This is what we do at Sysco that no one else does, is bring you value like this in a very easy, non-fill out webinar format, but just to watch on your phone. And we're going to continue to bring you this. So welcome new people to Sysco.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Over to you, Chef.
Sorry.
That was my plug. That was my plug.
Yeah.
I was never just dying for you to
Carve
cut that
down the bone. Follow the bone all the way down. And you're left with just a beautiful, beautiful bone there with some meat. Lots of great meat on there. I'm not going to eat it right now because we're live. I might do it later. But I'm going to place this on a plate or a board. And then when you're cutting in, just simply, whichever way you like, I'm going to start at this end. And we're just going to go all the way through. I think this steak deserves to be cut nice and thick. Again, it's a great steak to share.
See, I'm in Alberta. That's a one-person steak, buddy.
But what I want to show you before I plate it is look at the doneness.
Okay, let me get in there.
It's the same all the way through. It's a beautiful, beautiful sort of rare to medium rare all the way through. You don't have any parts on the top that are more well done. It's just uniform all the way through. And if you're going to pay top dollar for a steak like this, you expect it to be cooked perfectly and coming to your table or your house medium rare all the way through, or however you prefer to cook it or have it cooked. I'm just going to take this, place it on my board, and I'll show you how we present it.
So Rami, I can ask you some questions here. So so we see this today. If a restaurant want to put this on their menu, where they go? What do they do? I'm going to unmute you.
Derma Meat is. Oh, there you go. Derma Meat is we're very unique in steakhouses, kind of restaurants. We provide them with all kind of special cut meats, and we go out there and make sure we provide them with quality first. So we do have senior experienced sales reps on the road that we have. They can contact us, and definitely we can provide them with all their needs for the restaurants.
Awesome. So they can buy what we're seeing today because definitely. I'm sold on it already.
This is an item that we carry on a normal throughout the whole seasons, right? It's a stock item that we carry at all times.
That's a lot of value there. Okay, definitely. Back to you, Steve. Thanks, Remy.
No, it's good. I just want to show you how I plated it up. I just could have plated on a butcher block here, a butcher board. So I've got that bone that I carved off. I've got the tomahawk carved beautifully, just a nice thick pieces. You can see that juice running down. And to take this from here to here, sort of over the top, a beautiful chimichurri sauce just over the top. And again, you know, you can put whatever sauce you like. Chimichurri is a very, very classic Argentinian condiment that they use, and it's just the acidity in it really helps cut some of the fatty nature, beautiful fatty nature of the steak, and just wonderful sauce. But again, you can have it on its own. You can have it with a peppercorn sauce. You could have it with a cognac brie sauce. You could have it with Espanol sauce. You could on and on and on, whatever you like, or just have it on its own because it's so freaking good. So it's I love it. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful item. I think actually, Jay and Rami, we should deem this Tomahawk Tuesday, right? Right? They've got every other sort of day of the week for steak. Why not make Tomahawk Tuesday a thing? If you like. But all kidding aside, I think this is an opportunity for restaurateurs and for home consumers to really, really take advantage of. It's a great family meal. I know we're in some navigating some tough waters these days, and people are looking for different options and different things to do, and different ways to cook, different ways to eat. Chances are you haven't bought a tomahawk from your local butcher time recently, but now maybe you might see it, or you might order it off a menu and bring it home and try it out with your family. I guarantee you, this will knock your socks off, it will blow you away. The flavor, the marbling, this steak is an absolute home run. So please enjoy it. Rami already mentioned how to get it and how to access it. But don't let the size of it and don't let the mass of bone intimidate you. It's just a big rib steak. You just have to put a bit more love into it, take a bit more time, and you'll end up with a fantastic looking product like this. So please enjoy it. And like Jay said, if you have any questions or need any help at all, please, I'd be happy to virtually call in and help you out. So that's the tomahawk.
Nice stuff, Steve.
There you go.
Yeah, don't do that. Rami, I'm a little jealous right now. Sorry.
Don't tell me. I'm hungry now.
So Steve, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What is some stuff? Because we always tell people what to do and things like that. Is there anything that you would recommend just to watch with the tomahawk? Just some tips maybe on things you just got to be careful, because that's a big investment and it looks pretty expensive for an operator, and you wouldn't want to mess it up. Is there anything you recommend?
Absolutely. When you're taking the time to invest in anything of value, I think it just deserves a bit more time and attention. It deserves some love. This is not something that you want to just wing it, grab it, and throw it on the grill and hope it works. I think doing your research, having a thermometer, taking the time to really cook it properly and do it justice, you're gonna get the bang for your buck that way. But if you rush through it and you treat it like just your sort of everyday steak on the grill, it's not. It's something special, and it should be treated that way. Anything that, like I said, you spent some time and some hard-earned money on, you want to make sure you deliver with it. So take your time. Again, I love the reverse sear method. It's low and slow. It's methodical. It's science when it comes to temperature, and it works. It really, really works. So take your time, measure twice, cut once, as they all say. So, but don't. This is not a steak to be rushed.
Awesome. So what do we have there? Thank you.
Another big slab of beef. So, as I mentioned earlier on, one of the things we want to show today, again in our Boneyard episode, are short ribs. And this came directly from a survey that Jay had sent out. So thank everybody who was involved in that. But braising seems to be an area that a lot more people are going to be doing these days. It's getting cold. It's sort of fall braising, really comfort sort of food. It's that type of season. And short ribs is the perfect product to showcase braising, because it's a type of cut that is not meant to be grilled, simply by where it comes from, the makeup of the fibers and the muscle tissues. It needs to be slowly braised, low and slow, so you get a beautiful sort of melt in your mouth, fall apart eating experience. So that's what this is. This is a 4-bone piece of short rib. Short ribs typically come from the chuck or the plate, which is at the extension of the rib cage. Some people call it a short plate. but this is the way it would come from the packer. It would come typically just like this, cut into 4 bones, and depending your operation, whether you're a butcher shop or a restaurant or whatnot, you would maneuver it the way you see fit. But these are wonderful, wonderful. It's a wonderful product to use. There's a couple of ways you'll also see it sometimes in retail, or other people will try and market it. Some people call these, there's Miami ribs and there's Korean short ribs. Those are a little bit different than these long ones. It's the same cut. The only difference is they're cutting across the bones this way, very, very thin, to give you those sort of small little, or not small, they're large, they're thin short ribs. So those are used for sort of quick cooking, quick frying, little beautiful pieces. They're typically marinated, and I just want to touch on why that is. And as I mentioned, this really usually isn't a piece of meat that you would grill. It deserves some slowness and some slow time in the oven. But the Miami or the Korean style, if you will, they're typically marinated because that marinade will help break down the fibers and allow it to be a bit more tender. So you'll typically always see it marinated in something acidic, something with maybe some fruit juice, something that'll help sort of break down the connectivity tissues that are inside the meat. So not to be confused with what we're going to do today, but just from an anatomy standpoint, you'll see different ways they're marketed. Maybe it's a flanken. You'll see different terms being used out there. But at the end of the day, a short rib is what it is. It's an extension of the rib bones down under the plate part of the animal. So what I am going to show you guys today is how to braise them. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole braising process because we'd be here for 4 hours and we don't have that kind of time, but I want to walk through the process and show you the end result and what it can look like. So you can ultimately try that in your at home, or adopt some different techniques in your current operation. So what I do first is I'm just going to show you what they look like. So as I mentioned, there's 4 bones. You can see them pretty easily down here. You can also feel with your finger between them where the knife is naturally going to run. Okay, so I'm going to split these into individual bones. I'll show you why this is such a coveted cut.
What kind of knife do you use in there, Chef?
This is, it's actually a hunting knife, but made into a butcher. So it's kind of a hunting camping knife to look like a cleaver. But
it looks awesome. It's
awesome, and it's sharp as heck. Great for this type of application. So sharp knives, always safe knives. Now, look at the amount of meat on that thing. Crazy, crazy good, right? Beautiful marbling, but this takes a different style of cooking than what we talked about for the tomahawk. It needs to be cooked low and slow to break down all this collagen and all of that protein that's within the muscle. So in order to start this process, again, I very, very liberally season with salt and pepper. And again, this is a very traditional way I'm going to show you today. It's going to be a red wine braised short rib. There's all different ways to do it. There's Korean flavor, there's sticky short ribs, there's barbecue short ribs, there's, you name it. If there's a flavor out there, there's a method to do it. And that usually starts now with the seasonings that you're going to be placing over the top of the ribs. Again, salt and pepper, both sides. Same with the tomahawk. Gonna rub those in so they're nice on all sides. And from here, you're gonna grab a skillet, cast iron, whatever you happen to have, and you're gonna sear all sides of these. You're gonna sear both sides of the meat, the fat side, so you get a really nice browning to it. That's kind of the sear that we want to have just to help lock in the juices out of the gate. So really nice sear. Don't be shy. I'm not going to do it right now because I'll set off the smoke alarm in the house. But I did it earlier, and you end up with a beautiful, beautiful sear on the outside. It smells great, and that is sort of the first stage of braising. The second stage of braising are your flavorings. So as I mentioned, we're going to do what I did is a red wine braise with traditional vegetables. So I use leeks and carrots, and celery and garlic, tomato paste, lots of red wine, lots of beef stock, some bay leaves, some thyme, some rosemary, just a very, very classic sort of bouquet of flavors that just naturally lend beautifully to these short ribs. So I did that all ahead of time, but I want to talk a little bit before I pull these out to show you. The secret to short ribs is time and temperature. People make the biggest mistake with short ribs and they rush it. These things need time. Okay? It needs time to break down all the collagen within the meat. All that protein within the meat needs to be broken down so it can liquefy and become beautifully tender and kind of wobbly, like a perfectly cooked short ribs, nice and wobbly, and it just sort of melts in your mouth. The trick is collagen breaks down anywhere between sort of 160 to 180 degrees. Okay, so it's sort of fully broken down at 180 degrees. Water evaporates at 212. The dance with short ribs is to get them hot enough without being too hot, so you're losing water, evaporating, and drying them out. So it's a bit of a dance, but as long as you have a great braising liquid, it's kept covered the whole time. You're not going to allow moisture to escape, and you cook them low. The ones I'm about to show you, I've had them in the oven for 4.5 hours at 250 degrees. And that temperature allows it to be nice and slow, allow the meat to do what it's meant to do. And you'll see when I pull them out, all this meat has restricted and constricted all the way down the bone. And you're going to get this beautiful presentation. So low and slow. Do not rush these things. Don't put this on the barbecue. Flip it a few times and cut into it. It won't eat well. It'll be tough. It just simply has not had enough heat exposure to it to break it down. Okay, so low and slow with these. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Let me just clear my cutting board and I'll pull these out of the oven for you and show you what they look like. One moment.
So Rami, is this something that we see us selling a lot to restaurants now? Or is this an opportunity for a lot of restaurants to have something different on their menus?
Definitely, this is it's always an opportunity, but it is the season that sells a lot for sure. And it's not because it's a low value item, but it's a very affordable item that they can play around with as a chef and advertise it out there. But it's very it's the season that it's always available in for sure. Normally, this is an item that it's more known for export from Canada, but currently it has a lot of value in the market.
Oh, that's awesome. And first of all, I just want to shout out to all of viewers. Thanks so much for the feedback. Love all the comments on our polls. We want to make these shows about what you want, not what we want to show you, but what you want to see and hear from us. So continue to send us in the comments. We want to hear this. And Frank Pro Steve to make sure he's cooking what you guys want to see. Our meat cam went down, Chef. Oh, and his mic. We'll be right back here in a second. He's just firing up his other camera, the meat cam. It's coming. So Rami, as Chef gets back on there, is there other cuts that are similar to that, but not as big?
Definitely, there is a cut. It's known as the chuck flat, which comes from the short rib, but it's boneless, and it comes in a smaller pieces that it's more usable and a quicker base. Some use it as it can't be steak, but it will work very well for braising. So a chuck flat or chuck flat, the term of it, that works very well. And the other item that it's very known and a lot of people know of it in the restaurant, from retail specifically, is the sirloin roast, right? Which that is an item very common for food service that we carry it on hand most of the time, and we can lay around and make sure it's ready for whatever the final customer needs. And all these items, you can reach out to your Sysco rep or reach out to Derma Meats, and we can make sure we provide you with all the details and the background of it.
Perfect. So Steve, your camera's still down and your mic. So Here he comes.
There you
There
go.
you go. You're back.
There we go.
This is not recorded, folks. This is pure live.
This is live TV, baby.
That's what you get.
So I literally just took them out, guys. They're still steaming, as you can see. But if you, as a point of comparison, look where we started, and I'll show you the raw one again. Right? This is where we started. So fully meated on the outside of the bone, right? And this is now
Oh, wow.
where we ended up, right? So see how all that meat has been pulled back off the bone naturally just through slow cooking? This stuff is what I like to call wobbly. And it's a term, it's not a fancy term, but it helps describe sort of the texture you're looking for. Because this is now going to just completely melt and fall apart, which will be beautiful. So that's what people are looking for when they're having short ribs. You know, those that have had it at a restaurant or have had it before, when you get that beautiful sort of wobble, you get that fantastic melty fall apart. There's a lot of beautiful fat in here that we want to experience and we want to enjoy. And that's just all through the cooking process of low and slow, not getting it too hot, not letting moisture evaporate, but allowing those proteins and that collagen to really break down. And that's what makes these such a great item. Rami already mentioned it. I heard it there when I was fixing my camera. It's affordable. It's something you're seeing more of, and I think this time of year as well is a time for, you know, low and slow, stuff being cooked in the oven, you know, outside raking leaves, whatever you're doing, and come inside your house and just have that beautiful aroma and that bouquet of flavors and those pheromones you're sort of looking for. This one has all of that going for it. So I'm a big fan of these. I'm going to show you just sort of what I like to do at the end.
Can you cut one, Steve?
What's that, Jay?
Just to show us how it cuts? Or if you want to dive into one of those, I'm dying for you to take a bite. I don't know about everyone else, but on a part.
I will one sec. If I bit it right now, I'd burn myself. So let me show you how.
Okay. Sorry, Steve.
No, there's no staging here, Jay. This is happening, baby. This is real.
This is pure. This is right there.
Right? The mashed potato. Right? Just up like this. Hold on a second here. I made a really cool.
This is definitely a flexitarian moment here. If you're eating veggies more, right now, maybe your cheat.
Right, so a beautiful red wine sauce over the top. Just cascade that down over the mashed potato. Right? Like, are you kidding me? This thing is just like, you know, knock this back and then go watch a football game. This is crazy good. Couple onion rings, crispy onions, or, you know, whatever you might want. Hang one over the bone, whatever you like. Tuck one in there. You know, a couple of herbs. You know, these are the last pieces of rosemary and thyme out of my garden. But how's that? Are you kidding me? Like, talk about comfort food. That is just has all the attributes of something stunning. It's surrounded by other pieces of short rib. This is just as rustic as you get. But I promise you, this is going to be an eater's paradise. You know, they're great the next day as well, again, because they've been cooked so nicely. But take your time with them. Again, this is something that takes time. It takes time to do it properly, and don't rush it. And I always say, you know, when you start with great, I said it already, when you start with great products and you start with great ingredients, you end up with amazing products. So buy what you want, buy what you like, but, you know, I would be an advocate to, you know, spend a little bit more for quality beef, stuff that's got some good age on it, stuff that's well marbled. Those are really the keys to beef, right? Well marbled, well aged, well seasoned, and cooked properly based on the cut. That's how you're going to have success, right? Don't try and grill a short rib. You know, conversely, don't try and slow roast for 4.5 hours of tomahawk. It's just going to fall apart. So there is a mythology for every cut. There's a mythology for why things work. And that's what we're here to do. And I just can't wait every other week to get on here with you guys and talk about different ways to do things, showcase great cuts, great beef, and really listen to our audience out there. If there's things that you're looking to do or ways that we can help your operation or life at home, that's what we're here to do.
So, Steve, I got one question here, but as we're opening up to our viewers, if you have any questions, this is the time to do it, or later on, please do. But if you have any questions for Chef Steve or for our in-house butcher, please send them across. But I do have a question. So, Steve, that looks like you don't need to be a fancy steakhouse to be able to do this.
No.
Anyone could do this, right?
You know what? That's an excellent point, Jay. I'm glad you brought it up. You don't. This is comfort food. I would love to see this in a little pub down the street from where I live. I'd love to see it in fancy steakhouses. I'd love to see it everywhere because it's an approachable protein. It's an approachable cut. And I think there's a lot of recognition with short ribs. I think consumers know what they are. There's sort of an expectation for how they taste and how they're to be delivered. And a lot of people, may not want to go through the lengths that I went through today to deliver this. But this is a very, very, it's a fantastic item to utilize in any space. And again, you don't even have to be a steakhouse, right? You could be whatever you are, your little mom and pa or what have you. But when people see short rib on the menu, and especially this time of year, it's a food of love. It's real comfort. And I think we all need a little bit more, comfort these days as we navigate through this horrific time we're going through. But food warms the belly and food warms the soul. And I tell you, this thing will not disappoint. Absolutely.
So, Chef Steve, we got a question here. Can you just talk a little bit about the wine sauce?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just simply took, it's sort of a roux-based sauce. So I just made it using traditional vegetables. So carrot, celery, onion at the beginning. Added some flour, some tomato paste to the pan after I'd sort of sweated down the sauces. Whole bottle of red wine went into this. I actually added some brandy in as well, and some additional herbs, some rosemary, some thyme, a little bit of sage as well. And I reduced it down by about a third. And you'll notice after you've added your flour and butter, which is the roux, it naturally just sort of comes up and thickens on its own. And really the general rule of thumb with any sauce is once it sort of coats the back of the spoon, it's sort of ready to go because it will thicken as it cools as well. So if you're doing this ahead of time or the day ahead or whatnot, it will thicken a bit more as it cools. So really simple, just sort of that holy trinity of carrots, celery, onions at the beginning. Really sweated those out, lots of butter, added some tomato paste, some flour, got that all sort of nice and brown. Whole bottle of red wine went in. And a little bit of brandy, some herbs, and away you go. So it'll thicken on its own. And as you can see, it's just got a beautiful viscosity to it and pairs fantastic with it. So yeah, fairly straightforward as far as doing it. And again, as I mentioned before, this is just one style, guys. The short rib is what it is, but make them sticky, make them sort of a hoisin ginger, make them there's all kinds of different notes that you can do with this type of thing. And the meat will support it. It'll definitely support those flavors. So
perfect. Awesome. Great question though. But definitely, I just think the value is there to get a good price point on your menu, give your customers a great experience and not have to have something super expensive, but great stuff here.
And again, I might be repeating myself, but I think a lot of times things like this can be intimidating. And they really don't need to be. I think it's just, the more you learn and know about it, the more comfortable you are with them cooking them, confidence you'll have. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. Whether you're in a restaurant setting or a home setting, when you're confident about what you're making and you're confident about what you're trying to do, you're going to have success. So read up, study, ask lots of questions, and try stuff, right? I mean, this is a great time to try cooking some different things you may not have normally done. And I know that there's lots of availability at local grocery stores. Restaurants have access to all these great items. So be creative, be adventurous, and have a whole lot of fun because that's what food should be. It should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I don't know. I'm going to call you the butcher, the chef. We do so many shows together. I don't know.
You got to figure that out. So
we have to figure that out later. But awesome stuff, Chef Steve. We love what you do. Great ideas. Now, a couple things for the viewers. Please continue to send us feedback in here. We do have a request for Steve's email. We'll get that to you as well. Just send us your email so we know who to email and how to get a hold of you. But we are going to continue to bring you great ideas on our virtual butcher show. Every couple of weeks, we'll be back. There's a couple times throughout the holidays that we'll change the dates and times. But follow us on Facebook to find out when those are. But we're going to continue to bring great ideas here. All brought to you by our love and company, Derma Meats. And I'm going to bring Remy back up here. And thanks again. Awesome stuff. You know, there's a lot of new customers that are on the show today watching us. And thanks for filling out our polls. It means the world to us. But on that, this is what makes us different. This is what makes us a company you want to work with, because we want to work with you. We want to bring you great ideas and help your business out. That's what we're really passionate about. And I tell you, I've been doing this for 14 years in business resources, and with our stuff that we bring, we love this. This is our drug, and we love sharing it and these great ideas with you to help your business out. So continue to join us on our virtual show. We got more shows tomorrow, more shows on Thursday. Next week, we got like 58 shows to go till the end of Christmas. Christmas. And we're going to bring you great information. And we also do a late night show, 7 p.m. on Eastern times. Tomorrow, we have Chris Elliott from Restaurants Canada and Shaker from McCain's that are industry experts. We're going to talk about the Canadian landscape of food service, as well as what's coming up in January, February, March. So you may want to tune into that, and you can watch it on your phone, watch it wherever you want. But just thanks again, Chef Rami. Thanks again.
My absolute pleasure, guys.
That's amazing. Thanks.
Awesome stuff. Everyone else, get out there, support a restaurant, dine out, take out, eat out. That's all we want you to do. So thanks again, and we'll be back. Yes, please. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
He had to do that.
I'm in for that.
So good.
Hey, Steve, save me a piece. I'm driving over to your house.
All right, buddy. I got the wine ready, too. Let's have at it.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. See you soon.
See you guys.